G'day everyone and welcome to Fallout 4. In this video I'm going to be going over the new settings that are in the new beta 1.3, which include Nvidia's HBAO and a new weapon debris. Now for my first test I'll be using my GTX 650 as a dedicated Physx card, and in the second test I'll be using just purely the GTX 980 to see how they run with the new weapon debris. Now before we get started with the first test, I thought I'll just show you all the preset settings that I've got set up. As you can see, most of the settings are on pretty high except for God rays. The weapon debris is on high, and Nvidia's new HBAO. For the first test we'll be using my GTX 650 as a dedicated Physx card to see how it runs. Alright, so here we are with the first test, using my GTX 650 as a dedicated Physx card, and we'll get started. Now I have a second monitor off to the side so I can actually check and see what the graphics cards are doing. At the moment the GTX 650 is getting close to 50% usage, and GTX 980 is hovering around 70%, and the CPU is hovering around the 50% mark on all cores. Now I can actually see about now is when my GTX 650 is actually hitting 100% and the 980 is actually starting to drop and is now actually sitting below 50% usage. So surprisingly, using a dedicated Physx card such as a GTX 650 isn't actually doing much good here. So perhaps the 650 cards are a bit too old to be used as a dedicated Physx card. Now this stuff is actually fully interactive, so you can actually walk through it and flick it around. You can even throw a grenade in there. And that's a fail. But that's still pretty cool. You can see it sort of sliding through the rubble. There you go. Alright, now for the second test. As you can see, all the settings are exactly the same, except this time I'll just be using my GTX 980 to handle all the graphics and the Physx. Alright, second test now, and this is using just the GTX 980 by itself with no dedicated Physx card. And in previous experience with say Mafia 2, having one card handle the Physx by itself can usually actually result in some pretty poor performance, but we'll wait and see. Now looking off to the side, the GTX 980 is actually getting pretty close to 90%. And obviously I have actually done a lot of testing before making this video, and surprisingly the GTX 980 handles the Physx better by itself. I've spent quite a bit of time around here blowing stuff up and shooting in the walls and that, and there has been no drop in frame rate whatsoever. So I'm actually really impressed that this is very well optimized to run off just one card. Perhaps if you had a newer, like say GTX 750 Ti or perhaps even like a GTX 950 as a dedicated physics card, you'll see some improvements. But yeah, if you just got a GTX 980, probably even a 970, I think you'll find that the performance is really rock solid here. But as you can see, no frame rate loss. Throw a grenade in there. Has dipped down a little bit, but yeah, I'm actually really impressed with how this is running. As you can see, it also emits wood chips, glass as well. Notice that the glass actually has a bit more of a frame rate hit, but we're only talking about 5-10 frames. And as soon as you stop shooting, it's not too bad. So yeah, overall I am really impressed. Alright, so before I go, I thought I'd just show you how Physx is handled in Mafia 2. At the moment I'm using the GTX 980 by itself with no dedicated card for the Physx. And as you can see, the frame rate is struggling quite a bit, dropping right down to like 30 odd frames a second. So my guess is that the way they implemented Physx in this game, it is an older game, but obviously it wasn't implemented properly and not very well optimized. But if we have a look at this now with a dedicated Physx card. Now in this benchmark I'm actually using the GTX 650 as a dedicated Physx card. And as you can see, the frame rate is a lot more stable. There are still dips here and there, but on the whole the Physx card is actually making the debris and that actually playable now. So I'm guessing that this has come down to a optimization problem with this game. And surprisingly the 980 couldn't handle the Physx in this game by itself, but it could actually handle it surprisingly well in Fallout 4 by itself. Now I'm looking at the other screen and both graphics cards are hovering well below like 40% usage, and it's maintaining a pretty rock solid 60 frames a second. Now this is still a beta release, so perhaps there might be further optimizations made in the future. As you saw in the video, I had Nvidia's HBAO that they've added in as well, which didn't affect the frame rate whatsoever. Now these are both Nvidia features, so I've got no idea how they will run on a AMD card. But leave your comments down below as to how you're getting along with these new features. Now if you actually want to access these, you'll need to go into your Steam library, right click on Fallout 4, go down to the properties, and in there there's a tab called beta. There'll be a drop down menu, you need to select the beta thing in there, go OK, and it should download automatically. Well, I'll stop the video here and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.